eso termina nuestro programa. Ahora, mi amigo, James Robert. James, ¿cómo estás hoy?
Yola, padre. Estoy bien. How are things going with the swine flu over there?
No conozco qué estás hablando sobre. ¿Qué es swine flu?
Swine flu? It's swine flu. It's like los pigs enfermos.
James, yo vivo en España.
Yeah, so you know all about that, right? Oh, by the way, it's getting a little feisty over here. Could you tell your amigos and your familia to kind of slow down the immigration front? It's just too tight.
Pues...
Oh, also, by the way, I'd like to apologize for whooping your butts in the Mexican-American War. You just don't mess with our Texans, man.
James, estoy en Madrid. Lo sabes.
Oh my, you're Cuban. I am so sorry. Soy muy sorry, muchacho.
Oof.
That's all the time we've got tonight, for today, right now. See ya, hasta la chuga, Juan.
I hate my job.
Tonight, Fort Sumter gets bombarded. I'll give you all the gory details. Lincoln calls for volunteers. Patriots, exit left. Our guest tonight is President Lincoln. We'll see how honest he is after all. Mrs. Moss says it's really hard to get pregnant, so woohoo! This is the Robert Report. Good to have you with us, folks. Thanks for coming out tonight. Nation, there has been quite the disturbance down at Fort Sumter recently. Now, apparently, men with cannons and guns, but more importantly, mustaches, have bombarded and taken over a federal fort. Look at this shocking painting done of the siege of Fort Sumter. Can you believe that? The painter was standing right behind the men while they bombarded the fort, and he did nothing to stop them. More importantly, look at those mustaches. We can ascertain the exact rank of each individual soldier simply by looking at their face-to-beard ratio. Fortunately, those hairy hobgoblins inflicted 0 casualties at our homeboys at Fort Sumter. The only significant injuries include the tragic death of a cat who got stuck in the tree. What's that, Jimmy? That was my grandmother's cat? Unfortunate. After the fall of Fort Sumter, the April 13th edition of the New York Times stated that everyone is satisfied with the victory and happy that no blood was shed. Nation, why are we satisfied with this? We need to bust some Southern head and avenge my grandmother's cat. Buttons never did anything to anyone. We can't let those Saudis take away old Grandmama Robert's only companion. Now I have to listen to rants about old James Madison's cute little butt. Speaking of armies, we were talking about armies before. Let's see. President Lincoln has called for 75,000 militia volunteers to put down these maniacs. He has urged all patriots to join up for the cause. But nation, what is the cause? The real question on people's minds in the North is, are we fighting to put down insurrection or just those beards? Because if we're fighting to put down those beards, I'd like to show you a little something I like to call our president. Look, it's practically alive. With a beard like that leading the Union, there's no doubt we'll win the war. Could it be that the beard is the secret to his awesome charisma? Or maybe it's just that he's a unicorn! As Mr. Lincoln would say, the Constitution does not expressly say. Friends, I've been concerned with these Southern vagabonds for quite some time now. If I was president, I'd have made these Southern states secede back into the Union by now. Unfortunately, some of my fraternity bros in Chicago disagree. As stated in the Chicago Tribune in October of 1860, if South Carolina wants to secede from the Union, we should simply let her go, and like a limb lopped from a healthy trunk, wilt and rot where she falls. Shortly after, my good friend Horace Greeley wrote in his New York Tribune that if the Cotton States shall become satisfied that they can do better out of the Union than in it, we insist on letting them go. Now I know what you're saying. Lame. But wait, the very same Horace Greeley recently wrote a letter to Lincoln saying that I fear nothing but another disgraceful backdown of the free states, another nasty compromise with the South, whereby everything is conceded and nothing secured, will so thoroughly disgrace and humiliate us that we can never again raise our heads. That's right, my man Greeley pulled through. I used to play lap tag with that guy back in the day. Now, nation, it's no secret that I'm an American hero. People idolize me. All I would have to do to make the South come back to the Union is go down there and show them my dazzling smile. Now, what is President Lincoln doing? I'll tell you what he's doing. He's negotiating. Look at his declaration of war.
And I hereby command the persons composing the combinations aforesaid to disperse and retire peaceably to their respective abodes within 20 days from this date.
Ridiculous! We have about as much chance of reasoning with South Carolina as this man with his crazed stallion. Apparently, Mr. Lincoln doesn't have the balls to declare war like a man, so I'll do it for him. Confederacy, prepare to be strangled in a period of 3 more years, in the manner similar to that of an anaconda strangling its prey. Which brings us to tonight's word. Balls. Nation, I'm not talking about just any balls. I'm talking about good, old-fashioned American balls. In particular, the ones so intimately acquainted with one Abraham Lincoln. Mr. Lincoln was born on February 12th, 1809, in a Kentucky log cabin. From an early age, he attended a Baptist denomination church that opposed slavery. At the age of 7, he moved with his family to Indiana. Sounds pleasant, doesn't it? Yeah? Well, listen to this. Apparently, he was uninterested in good hard physical labor, but instead preferred reading and learning, and he was always borrowing books from his neighbors. But apparently his education paid off. From 1832 to 1840, Lincoln ran for the Illinois state legislature 5 times, 4 of which were successful. He failed at first, but he persevered and he came back and won it. In 1842, Lincoln married the lovely Mary Todd Lincoln. Jimmy, could we get some more bling, please? Thank you, that's lovely. Now, after 4 happy years of matrimony, Lincoln became an Illinois representative in the House. 10 years later, in 1857, Lincoln fought tooth and nail to oppose the Dred Scott decision. And, I quote, "As the Supreme Court decides that Dred Scott is a slave, the whole community must decide that not only Dred Scott, but all persons in like condition are rightfully slaves." Suffice it to say, Mr. Lincoln was wholeheartedly for abolishing slavery in the District of Columbia. In fact, he volunteered to read a bill outlawing slavery in Washington, D.C. His other works in Congress include supporting internal improvements, such as building roads, bridges, ports, and trains! After several years of experience in the House of Representatives, Lincoln decided to run for Illinois state senator against Stephen Douglas. To get an edge over the more well-known candidate, Lincoln organized a series of debates against the pro-slavery Democrat. Despite losing the election, the popular debates gained Lincoln nationwide renown as the new face of the Republican Party. From log cabin to congressman to national icon, that takes more than the average set of cojones. Those are Spanish balls. And that's the word. We'll be right back.
I like lemonade. I like lemonade. I like
And now, our guest tonight, President Lincoln! Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Mr. President, glad to have you with us.
Thank you.
Mr. President, we have you here to talk today about one of your recent presidential actions. You suspended habeas corpus, sir. Now, I'm not such a big fan of reading, so you'll have to help me out here. What exactly is habeas corpus?
The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus is basically something that an arrested person can use to argue that their arresting was undeserved.
That sounds like a pretty good thing. I mean, why would you want to restrict that?
Yes, it is a good thing. In fact, at our nation's founding, it was one of the things that separated us from other world monarchies.
So why would you want to get rid of it?
What you and the audience have to understand is that suspending the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus, I'm not trying to hurt the nation, but protect it.
Let's see, you'll have to explain this one, Mr. President, because that really sounds like a mighty hefty paradox.
As I've often said to people who disagree with me on my actions, it can be necessary to suspend one section of the Constitution temporarily in order to preserve the rest of it into the future. By general law, life and limb must be protected, yet often a limb must be amputated to save a life.
True as that is, sir, I just have to point out a little something. Are you familiar with this document? It says right here, Article 1, Section 9 of the United States Constitution, the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended. What do you say to that?
Keep reading.
Unless in cases of, unless rebellious or invasion, the public safety may require it. So what? What's your point? How can you say that the public safety is in danger? Things seem to be going pretty good right now, so long as you ignore, half the nation seceding.
Well, that's precisely it. The motive of the suspension of the writ of habeas corpus was to protect what we had left of the Union from illegal acts like secession, especially in Maryland.
Illegal. You said illegal. Mr. President, do you believe all that the Declaration of Independence says?
I do.
Would you agree that the 13 original colonies banded together as the several states?
Go on.
Then how can you say that the South's actions are illegal when the Revolutionary War was really the Secessionary War? I mean, what's the difference?
Just because revolution is a form of secession does not mean that they are one and the same. Secession is only revolution when there is a morally justifiable cause behind it. When secession happens without such a cause, revolution is not a right, but simply a wicked practice of physical power. The South has been trying to make it seem like they have every right to secession. This is false. The Union is older than any of the states and, in fact, it created them as states. These have never been states either in substance or name outside the Union. The only exception to this fact is Texas, but they gave up their title as a separate nation on joining the Union, the same Union that their newfound sister southern states were part of. No state, upon its own mere motion, can lawfully get out of the Union.
But doesn't the Declaration of Independence say that it is our duty as citizens to overthrow a corrupt government?
It says that it's the right of the people to abolish a government that denies them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I am not denying any of these things.
Do you consider the seceding southern states to be in rebellion?
Oh, of course. The South has been trying to justify rebellion under the cover of secession for the past 30 years, ever since South Carolina first toed the line of secession. Jackson shot down the notion with the Nullification Act, but the southern states have been toying with the idea of secession ever since. They have been preaching that it is their right to secede, but nothing gives them the right to cut themselves off from their country. The United States paid large sums of money for several of the southern states. Florida, for example, was bought from the Aboriginal tribes for around $100 million. For them to sever themselves from the Union without any compensation is irresponsible and disrespectful. The South can claim that secession is justified, but really it is only sugar-coated rebellion.
Touché, sir, however. Returning to the previous matter, could you walk us through your decision-making process regarding habeas corpus in Maryland?
Certainly. As you may know, riots were beginning to pop up all over the state of Maryland. The leaders of Maryland were rumored to have a meeting and vote to secede, My cabinet and I argued intensely over what course of action to take. Some said a violent course of action would be best. At the time, I thought it was not justifiable. But upon
Why did you think that?
Well, as I expressed in a letter to General Winfield Scott, the riot clearly have the right to assemble. And also, we would not be able to permanently stop their actions.
You know what I say? I say torture. Waterboard these terrorists. I mean, I can control myself too, Mr. President. Please continue with your story.
So I didn't think it was permissible to take violent action, but upon hearing that a riotous group planned to destroy a railroad bringing home Union soldiers, I was quickly urged by William Seward, my Secretary of State, to suspend the writ of habeas corpus. My thinking, as well as the thinking of my fellow cabinet members, was that if Maryland seceded, our nation's capital in Washington, D.C., would be surrounded on both sides by Virginia and Maryland, and be susceptible to Confederate attacks. All we needed was for Maryland to remain in the Union, no matter how much they didn't like the way we kept them there.
Which brings us back to torture. Okay, next question. I have heard speculators say that habeas corpus can only be suspended by Congress. I mean, as Article 1 is a section of the Constitution designated for congressional powers, don't they have jurisdiction there?
In a time of rebellion, decisions need to be made quickly. Congress was not in session at the time, and action needed to be taken quickly.
I believe you're the first president to suspend habeas corpus. Is that true?
Yes, I am. However, in the War of 1812, General Andrew Jackson suspended it in New Orleans. I've always admired Jackson for taking control in times of crisis.
Do I sense a man crush?
A little bit.
Little ridiculous, but they're in love.
Mr. President, under the suspension of the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus, can I arrest you?
Yeah, no, but I can arrest you.
Okay, that's all the time we have for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Abraham Lincoln. We'll be right back.
And I like lemonade.
It's all for the rapport. Good night, everybody. Make good decisions.
It's over!
Abraham Lincoln,
Abraham,
you were a truly great man.
Abraham, Abraham,
Born in a cabin,
Abraham,
son of a hard-working man.
Abraham, Abraham,
Just a poor country boy, Father Abraham, by working hard for brotherhood, became the leader of our land. Abraham Lincoln,
Abraham,
you were a truly great man.
Abraham, Abraham,
Born in a cabin,
Abraham,
son of a hard-working man.
Abraham, Abraham. 16th President of our land. You helped to free the slaves. Your name means truth and brotherhood. They called you Honest Abe.
Just a poor country
Ball.